Hi, I'm Nick Carroll and this is the special Surf Safety Series just for you, brought to you by Surf Lifesaving New South Wales and Coastal Watch. Here we are with episode 5 of the Surf Safety Series, and it's kind of a big one. How do we do CPR? Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. No wonder they shortened it down to CPR, right? Cardio means the heart, pulmonary means the lungs, and what you're doing with CPR is basically playing the part of the heart and the lungs until some better help can get there and make them work properly again. So we're going to talk through the process of actual CPR here, and we're going to do it through an acronym, just like CPR but longer. DRSABCD. What's the point of CPR? The point of CPR is to keep blood, oxygenated blood, moving through the brain enough so that we prevent brain damage before real super help arrives. Or maybe, well, 3 things might happen, okay? Super help arrives, like paramedics, whatever. Person kind of revives by themselves, pops back, or the person is eventually declared dead. They're the 3 outcomes. CPR is simple stuff really, but it's hard work and you've got to have your head screwed on. So let's just keep this simple and follow the progression. D for danger. Like we said over the last couple of episodes, the first thing you want to be sure of is what, if any, dangers are lurking in the near vicinity. Now, you've probably brought this person back to the beach, or maybe you've just found them on the beach unconscious, or someone else has brought them back from the beach but they don't know what to do next, okay? Just have a look around and just make sure there's nothing dangerous around, no broken glass. Oh, even blue bottles are a hassle when you're trying to do something and they're all around you and everyone's getting stung. Just make sure you know what, if any, dangers exist to you and to the person who you're going to try and revive, and to anyone else who's around. Again, this is why paramedics move into these situations slowly and carefully, to make sure they know what's happening before they engage in the actual resus. Response. You want to find out the person's state of consciousness, if any. Take them by the shoulders, just in from the shoulders, between the shoulders and the neck, and squeeze. Try and squeeze quite tight, because you'll sting them a bit. If they're conscious, they'll feel that and they'll respond to it. Talk to them, don't shake them. Okay, you don't know what's happened to this person. Maybe there's a broken bone in the neck. You shake them around, you move that broken bone. It's not that great. If you get any kind of response, then you know they're conscious, and that's the time to move them into the recovery position. Just roll them over onto their side and just keep a really good close eye on them to make sure nothing bad happens. So if the person can respond to you, there's no immediate need to do any CPR or anything. If the person doesn't respond, you really need to call AAA right away. That's the S in this equation. Send for help. The next step, A, is airway. It's for airway. Nobody can breathe if his or her airway is blocked. That's not likely in a suburban mall. Someone's had a heart attack and they've fallen over. But we're talking about a water situation. Anything could have happened. They could have inhaled a lot of seawater, they could have inhaled seaweed, they could inhale a blue bottle. Who knows what might be into that airway and blocking them from being able to breathe. So the first job is to clear that airway. Roll the patient on the side, lean over, open the airway by tipping the head back just a tiny little bit. This will give them the best chance of breathing if they're able to breathe. And have a really close look inside the patient's mouth and the upper part of the throat. You'll be able to do this by really taking a close look. Don't be all intimidated by the fact that you're touching another person, okay? This is no time for body issues. Open that mouth up, have a really good look inside, and if you can see something in there, maybe if there's a bit of seawater in there, it might just run out naturally. If there's a bit of seaweed or something in there, a bit of pumice stone, whatever, okay? Don't be scared to reach in and pull it out, okay? Because that might be all it takes to get this person breathing again. They might be just suffering a brief impingement from something they've swallowed. Get that clear, maybe they'll start breathing again. B, breathing, by the way. Let's check for their breathing. There's 3 things to check for here. You want to be able to look at the person's chest to see it's rising and falling. When you breathe, that's what happens, right? Do it now, you can do it yourself if you want. Look around, see some stranger breathing, you'll notice, yes, the lungs inflate and they deflate. That's the breathing process. So look for that. Listen for it, get down near the mouth, put your ear near their mouth. This will mean that a couple of things happen. You might listen for that breathing process, and you might also feel air moving in and out of the mouth. If there's air moving in and out of that person's mouth, you know they're breathing. They might not be breathing great, but they're breathing. And also feel for it. Feel for that air, and also feel the chest. You can place a hand on someone's chest and you might detect movement that you might not immediately see, especially if they're wearing a wetsuit or something that gets in the way of your vision. So look, listen and feel for breathing. Let's say the person's not breathing, or they're bad breathing, like sort of choking or gasping. They're not breathing. That's a real danger sign. Turn the person back onto their back. Find the sternum. That's the big fat chunk of bone and gristle that joins the ribs together in the middle of the chest. Find that with one hand and place the heel of your hand right over the center of that sternum, okay? So in this case, what you'd want to see is the small finger of your hand lining up roughly with the person's armpit. You'll know then that you're pretty much over the center of the sternum with that one hand. Lock the fingers and thumbs of your other hand around the wrist of the hand that's in contact with the person, and you start compressing, okay? So there's a few things to think about here when you're doing compressions. The first is that you really want to compress, like don't just kind of like little pushy whooshy, all right? You want to compress the chest a third into its thickness, okay? So that's a fair way in. So really put some weight into it, push down, and think about also the rate of compressions. It's about 110 to 120 compressions a minute. That's kind of like a, I don't know, it's like a dance track or something. So if you dance music, just try to play that in your head while you're doing this. 30 compressions, just like that. Boom, 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 boom. Use your body weight, not your muscles, because your muscles will get tired even if you're a really big, strong weightlifting man, or woman for that matter. Your body weight does a better job in compressions than does your muscles. 30 compressions. Then you want to give 2 breaths to this person, get some oxygen into the lungs. The oxygen from your breath works just fine, because when we breathe in, about 21% of what we breathe in is oxygen. When we breathe out, we've taken about 5 of that 21% out. So there's still 15 or 16% of oxygen in the breath you expel. Plenty for that person's body to use to restock the blood. 2 quick breaths. Remember to try to keep the head back so that the airway's open, and really create a seal with your mouth on that person's mouth. Hold the chin with a pistol grip so that you can keep the mouth open while you're doing the breaths, and do them quick, like 1 breath, have a look, see if it inflated or deflated the chest, another breath, back into the compressions. Keep that going, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, until one of the 3 things happens. Either the person bounces back, it's not super likely, but it's possible, or help arrives because someone was smart and called 000, or sadly enough you keep at it for 40 minutes and a doctor shows up and the doctor assesses the person as having died. Something to remember about CPR, if you don't feel comfortable with doing the breaths, maybe the person's bleeding horribly from the mouth, maybe you're concerned about danger to yourself, you might have a weakened immune system, you don't want to get a disease off this person, whatever, okay? It's fine, just do the compressions. Compressions are better than nothing. The more research that's been done into this shows that compressions are what really make the difference, and the more compressions the better. It used to be only 15 compressions between the breaths, now it's 30. That's how long it takes to get blood moving up into the brain and back out again. Don't worry about injuring the person during the compressions. It's very possible you might break a rib in this process, not yours, but the patient's, okay? If you do that, you know what, it's better to have a broken rib than to be dead, right? If there's others around who know some of this CPR stuff, get them involved. Because tell you what, keep this up for 5 minutes, you'll be sweating like a pig. Keep it up for 10 minutes, you'll be really tired. If you're really good at this, you might be able to keep it up for 12 or 15 minutes without stopping. But that's very rare. It's hard work. So if there's someone there, just swap out every couple of minutes. Maybe they do the breath for a little while, and then they do the compressions and you do the breath. Just back and forth like that will really extend the time that you're able to provide CPR to this person. One more letter in this little wacky alphabet of ours, our rescue alphabet. That's D, and that stands for defibrillation. If there's a surf club around nearby, it will have a defibrillator somewhere on the premises. So what's a defibrillator? It is a small but potent device which is capable of measuring the heart's behaviour and advising you to give that person a shock. The way you use a defibrillator is really simple. Every defibrillator comes with its own instructions, which are very easy to carry out. You really want to make sure the person's dried off a little bit before you apply the pads. The pads go next to an armpit and on the other side of the chest below the rib cage. The defibrillator will then check the heartbeat of the person. The thing might then advise you to give a shock. It will tell you what to do. Make sure no one's touching the patient. You have to manually deliver the shock by pressing a button on the defibrillator, so it's not going to do it itself. Any lifeguard will have one. Increasingly, office buildings have them. So if there's someone around who's able to do this, get them to run and try to find one, because using a defibrillator increases the chances of an unconscious person's survival by a huge amount. What a defib does, it doesn't actually start the heart again. It's not like one of those things in hospital where they go clear and then boom, okay? Those things are capable of restarting a heart. This thing actually stops a dysfunctional heart, okay? So when a heart's in defibrillation, it's just sort of fluttering like that. That's typically what happens during a drowning. It just sort of stops being able to pump blood, but it's still going, doesn't know what to do. The defib stops it from working, and then it restarts, and hopefully it restarts well. It's kind of like rebooting a computer. So if a defib's available, use it. So let's say the best case scenario happens, the person recovers while you're there. Again, don't just rack off. This person is very likely to suffer another seizure of some kind. It's very possible. People have a thing called secondary drowning. They need to go to a hospital. Anyone who's been unconscious in the water needs to go to the hospital, needs to be looked after. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for the ambulance, keep a close eye on the person. If you put defib pads on them, leave them on. They might fall into unconsciousness again. You might need to use the defib again. And once you peel those things off, those pads, they're useless, they don't work again. Keep the defib on, keep the person comfortable, treat them for shock. That means just kind of keep them warm and relaxed and keep them calm, talk to them, and that maybe is the time to find out if they've got any other injuries at all. That's the time to do just a secondary injury check. Did they break a leg or whatever? Most importantly, once the person comes around, don't just run away. Don't be shy. Hang around, wait for the ambulance, make sure they're okay.